Hello everybody, how are you doing today? I'm out in the shop and I'm just kind of looking over my lathe. The other day I did a video where I used a dead center and a live center in an attempt to align the headstock and the tailstock, and I'm still noticing that it's just not perfectly aligned. Let me show you. I started by taking the tailstock off my lathe. There is a nut on the bottom that has a large washer on it that helps seat the tailstock and lock it into the ways. I removed that, I cleaned it, and I lubricated it. And when I put it back on the lathe and I just slide it forward, look how far I'm off. Now there is a little bit of play left and right, but the thing is when I come straight in, there's where I'm at. I'm off just a tiny bit. So I took another look at my headstock and you can see I've removed all 4 of the bolts. And I learned something. Here are the bolts down here. Take a look at this. Can you see that bolt is bent? And so is this one. And one of the back bolts, those were the 2 bolts on the front of the headstock. One of the bolts on the back was also bent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of those bolts up to my local hardware store, and I'm going to see if I can get a replacement for all 4 of them. I'm not even going to mess with the one that looks straight. To heck with it, I'm going to buy 4 brand new ones. I'm going to come back and replace them and see if I can do any better with the alignment between the headstock and the tailstock of my lathe. Now I will tell you there's always a little play in the tailstock. When you lock it down, if you pull on the tailstock, you can actually bring it forward or backward just a tiny bit. But if you just bring it straight up and lock it, I can repeat that every time, and the tailstock always points in the exact same direction. So I feel like that play is meant to be there for a reason. I could put a shim or something in there, but if you put a shim on one side, you're always forcing the tailstock to the opposite direction, which is going to be tougher to align with the headstock. So I think the objective here is to get some straight bolts, because as they go in, I could see them wobbling as they were going in, and I'm wondering if when they tighten down, because they're crooked, they're forcing the headstock a little bit to the front of the lathe or a little bit to the back. So I'm going to keep you guys posted when I get back with those bolts. I installed the 4 new bolts in my headstock, and right before I tightened them down, I brought the tailstock up and I just basically let it slide right up on the rails naturally without any pressure forward or back. Locked it in place, and then I adjusted the tailstock. Mine was about a 1/16 of an inch off, so I pushed it this way, just give it a couple of pops with my palm of my hand until it lined up with the tailstock. Then I cranked the bolts down nice and tight. Now if I just slide my tailstock up, and this is with one hand, I can bring it right up, and you can see I've got a really nice alignment between the head and the tailstock. So I'm real happy about that. I think this is going to make a huge difference in my turning. I really hope you enjoyed this short little video. I think this is going to make a huge difference for me in my turning. I had been noticing, especially with longer blanks, like when I turn the modified slimline pencil kits, that there'll be a little bit of a lip down by the nib, and it's bothered me for quite some time. And I attempted to align this headstock a while back, and I didn't have a lot of luck, and I think that may be attributed to the fact that 3 of the 4 bolts were bent. I didn't take them all the way out before. I just basically broke them loose, adjusted the headstock, and tried to tighten them back down. And I think being crooked, they're pushing the headstock one way or the other and getting it out of alignment. I went to my local hardware store. I took one of the bolts with me. They had a gauge up there, a thread gauge. They're able to take the bolt, put it right in the thread gauge, tell me what it was. I have to be honest, I don't remember. It was metric, but they found what it was. They pulled 4 bolts out of a bin that were literally the same length as the 4 that I had. They were 85 cents a piece, and I shot a little bit of that lubrication on the threads of the bolts as I installed them in the headstock. Once I lined it up, I cranked it down, and I tell you, if I just slide the tailstock forward, it's perfect every time. So I'm really excited about this. There is always a little bit of play in my tailstock, you know, where the tailstock can wiggle, but if I just take it forward and lock it, I don't have an issue. I can actually, if I get a little bit aggressive with it, it will sometimes go off kilter, but I know enough now to where I'm just going to bring it forward and lock it, and I think I'm going to have really good alignment from here on out. I'd like to thank you for joining me for this video. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon, and have a great evening, everybody.